Hello, my friends. I'm Dr. David James. For more than 3 decades, I've had the privilege of sitting across from men and women over the age of 50, listening to their stories, their fears, and their hopes. And I've learned something powerful. The body never stays silent. It whispers, it nudges, it warns us long before the storm arrives. Today, I want to talk with you about a subject that is both urgent and deeply personal. Your kidneys. These 2 small organs, tucked quietly in your lower back, are the guardians of balance. They filter about 50 gallons of blood every single day, clear away toxins, regulate blood pressure, and even help your body create new blood cells. But here's the frightening truth. When kidneys begin to fail, the signs are often mistaken for simple aging or stress. And by the time people realize what's happening, it's sometimes too late. That's why today, I want to share with you 10 early warning signs of kidney disease in plain language through stories and examples I've witnessed in my years of practice. As you listen, I want you to ask yourself, have I felt this before? Do I know someone who might? Because awareness isn't just knowledge, it's protection. Sign 1. Fatigue and weakness. Let me ask you something. Have you ever woken up after what seemed like a full night's sleep, but instead of feeling refreshed, you feel like the day is already too heavy? You drag yourself through the morning, maybe pour a second, even a third cup of coffee, but the fog in your head doesn't clear. One of my patients, Mary, a retired school teacher, 62 years old, once told me, "Dr. James, I feel like I'm carrying a backpack full of bricks all day long." And she wasn't exaggerating. When we ran her tests, we found her kidneys were no longer producing enough erythropoietin, a hormone that tells your bone marrow to make red blood cells. Without those cells, your blood carries less oxygen. The result is anemia, and that bone-deep exhaustion that no amount of rest can cure. I want you to imagine this. Every cell in your body is gasping for oxygen, but the delivery trucks, your red blood cells, are fewer and fewer. That is what kidney-related fatigue feels like. Now, some people dismiss this as just getting older, but I can tell you as a doctor, this kind of persistent, crushing fatigue is not normal aging. It's your body sending you a signal, one you cannot afford to ignore. So my advice? If you feel drained, no matter how much you rest, don't just push through it. Ask your doctor for a simple blood test. It could reveal anemia linked to kidney disease, and catching it early can change the entire course of your health. Sign 2. Swelling in the feet and ankles. Now let me turn to another sign, one that many of you might have brushed off. Have you ever taken off your socks in the evening and noticed deep grooves pressed into your skin? Or maybe your shoes feel tighter by the end of the day? I remember Robert, a 70-year-old gentleman who came into my office. He laughed and said, "Doc, I guess this is just what happens when you stand too long." But as we looked closer, we realized his kidneys were no longer removing fluid the way they should. That excess water had nowhere to go but down into his feet, his ankles, and eventually his legs and hands. Kidney-related swelling is different from the puffiness you get after a salty meal. It doesn't simply disappear overnight. It lingers, it worsens, and over time, it spreads. I want you to picture this. Your body is like a city with a drainage system. When the drains are clear, water flows freely. But when they're clogged, water floods the streets. That's exactly what happens when kidneys can't filter out fluid. It backs up, and your body becomes the street that's flooding. So if you notice persistent swelling, especially if it's getting worse, don't ignore it. This is one of the kidney's clearest warning signs. Sign 3. Changes in urination. Let me ask you this. How often do you really pay attention to your urine? Most people don't. They flush and move on. But I always tell my patients, your urine is like a report card for your kidneys. I had a patient named Linda who came to me worried about bubbles in the toilet. She thought it was nothing, but what she was seeing was protein leaking into her urine, a condition called proteinuria. Healthy kidneys are supposed to keep protein in your blood, not let it slip away. And there are other signs. Waking up several times during the night to urinate, urine that suddenly turns darker, or even tinged with pink, which can mean blood. I want you to imagine holding a sieve in your hand. Normally, it should hold back the rice while letting the water pass. But if the sieve has holes, the rice starts slipping through. That's exactly what happens when kidneys are damaged. They let vital proteins escape. So here's my advice. Don't be embarrassed to look. Notice the color, the foam, the frequency. If something changes and stays changed, that's your kidneys talking, and it's time to listen. Sign 4. Shortness of breath. Now, picture this. You're walking up the stairs in your home stairs you've climbed 100 times before. But this time, halfway up, you have to stop, gripping the rail, catching your breath. You think to yourself, why does this feel so hard now? I had a patient, John, a retired firefighter, who told me, Doc, I used to run into burning buildings, and now I'm out of breath just walking to the mailbox. When we tested him, the reason was clear. His kidneys weren't filtering properly, and 2 things were happening. First, anemia. His blood didn't carry enough oxygen. Second, fluid was building up in his lungs, making it harder for him to breathe. He wasn't just out of shape. His body was drowning from the inside. Science has proven this. Studies show that many people with kidney disease report shortness of breath, not because of weak lungs, but because of weak kidneys. So, if you find yourself winded by simple tasks, don't just blame age or weight. Ask your kidneys if they might be part of the problem. Sign 5. Nausea and loss of appetite. Here's a quieter sign, but one that eats away at life's joy. Imagine sitting down at the dinner table, the smell of your favorite meal in the air. But instead of hunger, you feel a wave of nausea. Or maybe food just doesn't taste good anymore. One of my patients, Margaret, told me, Dr. James, I used to love Sunday dinners with my family. Now, I just push the food around my plate. What was happening? Her kidneys were no longer filtering waste, and toxins, what we call uremic toxins, were building up in her blood. These toxins irritated her stomach lining, stole her appetite, and even changed the way food tasted. I want you to imagine your bloodstream as a river. When it's clean, life flourishes. But when waste piles up, the river becomes toxic. That's what happens inside the body when kidneys fail. And here's my advice. If you notice food losing its appeal, or nausea that lingers without reason, don't dismiss it as just stress or just age. This could be your kidneys quietly waving a red flag. Sign 6. Persistent itching. Let me ask you this. Have you ever had an itch that just wouldn't go away? Not the kind you can fix with a little lotion or a quick scratch, but a deep, maddening itch that feels like it's coming from under your skin. I'll never forget a patient named Carol. She told me, Dr. James, it feels like ants are crawling all over me, day and night. I scratch until my skin bleeds, but the itch never leaves. This kind of itching is common in kidney disease. Why? Because when kidneys stop working well, they can't remove phosphorus and other waste from the blood. Those substances build up, irritating the nerves under your skin. It's not a skin problem, it's a kidney problem. showing itself through the skin. I want you to picture your body like a house. If the garbage isn't taken out, the smell doesn't stay in the trash can, it seeps into the entire home. That's what toxins do inside you. So if you or someone you love has relentless itching with no clear cause, don't just reach for another cream. Ask the deeper question. Could this be my kidneys? Sign 7. Metallic taste and brain fog. Have you ever sat down to enjoy a meal, only to notice that everything tastes off? A strange metallic flavor, like you're chewing on pennies? And alongside it, maybe you've noticed trouble focusing, forgetting little things, or feeling like your mind is wrapped in fog. A patient of mine, George, once laughed bitterly and said, "Doc, my steak tastes like metal, and I can't even remember what I walked into the kitchen for." This happens because waste products that should have been filtered by your kidneys are now circulating in your bloodstream. They affect not only your taste buds, but also your brain. It's what we call uremic encephalopathy. But you don't need the medical term to know how unsettling it feels. Think of it this way. Your brain runs on clean fuel. When the fuel is dirty, the engine sputters. And that's exactly what happens when the bloodstream is filled with toxins. So, if food tastes wrong, or if your memory and focus suddenly decline, don't just assume it's age. Sometimes, it's your kidneys quietly failing. Sign 8. Puffiness around the eyes. Now, let's talk about something you might see in the mirror. You wake up in the morning, look at your reflection, and notice your eyelids are swollen. You think, maybe I didn't sleep well, or maybe it's allergies. But often, this puffiness is an early sign of kidney problems. Why? Because your kidneys are supposed to hold on to important proteins like albumin. When they start leaking those proteins into the urine, fluid builds up in the tissues, especially in the delicate skin around the eyes. I had a patient, Susan, who once joked, "Doc, I look like I've been crying all night, but I haven't shed a tear." In reality, her kidneys were losing protein every single day, and her face was showing it before any other symptom did. I want you to imagine a dam holding back a reservoir. When the dam is strong, the water stays where it should. But when cracks appear, the water seeps through, flooding the land. That's what happens when kidneys leak protein, the cracks are showing. So, if you notice persistent puffiness around your eyes, especially in the mornings, don't just cover it up with makeup or blame it on a bad night's sleep. Pay attention. It could be your kidneys whispering a warning. Sign 9. High blood pressure. Let me ask you something. Have you ever checked your blood pressure at home or at the pharmacy and thought, why is this number always creeping up? You change your diet, you take your medicine, but still, it won't stay down. I remember one of my patients, David, who said, "Doc, I feel like my blood pressure has a mind of its own." And in a way, he was right. His kidneys, which play a vital role in regulating blood pressure, were failing. They couldn't balance sodium, fluid, or the hormones that keep blood vessels relaxed. Think of your kidneys as the thermostat of your blood pressure. When they're healthy, they keep things steady. But when they're damaged, the thermostat breaks and pressure keeps climbing. And here's the dangerous part. High blood pressure doesn't just result from kidney disease, it also worsens it, creating a vicious cycle. So my advice is simple. If your blood pressure is difficult to control, don't just adjust the medication. Ask your doctor to take a closer look at your kidneys. Sometimes, the answer lies deeper than the numbers on the cuff. Sign 10. Cold hands and feet. Now, picture this. You're sitting in your living room, wrapped in a blanket, but your hands and feet still feel icy cold. Or maybe your nails take on a bluish tint, your lips a purplish shade. One of my patients, Helen, once said, "Doctor, James, it feels like no matter how many socks I wear, My feet are frozen. This isn't just poor circulation from age. It can be a sign that the heart and kidneys are struggling together. Here's why. When the kidneys fail, they can't balance fluids or support red blood cell production. The body responds by prioritizing blood flow to the brain and vital organs, leaving the extremities behind. The result? Cold, pale, sometimes even numb hands and feet. I want you to imagine a household in winter. When power is low, the family shuts off heat in some rooms to keep the main living space warm. That's exactly what your body does, sacrifices the hands and feet to protect the core. So if you notice constant coldness, especially along with other symptoms we've talked about, don't brush it off. It might not just be bad circulation. It could be your kidneys asking for help. My friends, we've walked through 10 important signs. Fatigue, swelling, changes in urination, shortness of breath, nausea, itching, metallic taste, and brain fog, puffiness around the eyes, high blood pressure, and cold hands and feet. Each of these signs, on its own, might seem small, easy to ignore, easy to blame on age, stress, or lifestyle. But together, they tell a story of kidneys struggling to keep up. Kidney disease is often called the silent killer because it hides behind everyday complaints until it's too late. But silence doesn't mean absence. Silence means waiting for someone wise enough to listen. So let me leave you with this. Have you felt any of these signs? Has someone you love quietly suffered through them? Don't wait. Don't ignore. A simple blood test, a simple urine test, could reveal the truth. And with early detection, kidney disease can be slowed, even stopped. Life, especially life after 50, is too precious to let slip away unnoticed. You've worked hard. You've loved deeply. You've built stories worth living. Don't let your kidneys steal that from you quietly. And before we finish, I have a simple request. If this video spoke to you, if you learned something today, please give it a thumbs up. That little gesture tells me these messages are reaching the people who need them most. And don't keep this to yourself. Share this video with your family, your friends, maybe even that one person who always says, "I'm fine," when you know they're not. You could be the reason they see the signs early, the reason they get help in time. And of course, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Every week, I'll be here, bringing you more insights, more stories, and more tools to help you protect your health and live fully after 50. Together, we're building not just a channel, but a community, a place where wisdom meets care, and where no one has to walk this health journey alone. So subscribe, like, and share. Because the more we spread awareness, the more lives we can change, maybe even save. Thank you for watching, and take care of yourself.